Hello everybody out there watching on YouTube, and welcome to race number 17 of Season 4 of the NNSCRA Marvel Studios Cup Series. I'm Levi McIntyre, the voice of the NNSCRA Marvel Studios Cup Series, here to welcome you to the Old Spice Office Depot 250 here at Old Spice Raceway as we are getting set for 19 laps of racing at a solid road course racetrack. Now, before we take a look at the starting lineup for the race, as per, we got to take a look at who's in the top 12 in the points, as well as the two wildcard drivers for the chase right now. After last week at Iowa, we have a tie for the points lead between Sean Galligan and Joshua Sekuli. Third is William Brock, fourth Chris Dollerton, fifth James McLeod, sixth James Qualls, seventh Dylan Young, who is on the pole for today, his third pole of the season, eighth Trent Dunham, ninth Jessica Sheldon, 10th is Dylan Thoreau. 11th, Dylan Poteet, and then 12th, Pichu London. Currently, the wildcard drivers are still Zach Flickinger with the 2 wins, and Seth Cole jumped ahead of Kyle Matthews for the second wildcard spot after last week at Iowa. So that is how the chase would look coming into the race today. But now let's take a look at the starting lineup. Starting in the last row are both of the Richard Petty Motorsports cars that made the race, Sean Galligan, Joshua Collard. Top 10, Dylan Young is on the pole. Starting next to him is Rafael LeDuc. Row 2 is Dylan Jacobs and Kyle Matthews. Row 3, Paul Mennick and Johnny Gardner. Row 4, Brandon Gonzalez and Tim Fiegel. And then row 5, DJ Curtis and Zach Flickinger. With that being said, let's go ahead and get the command to fire engines for the Old Spice Office Depot 250 here at Old Spice Raceway.
Drivers, start your engines.
So now the cars are rolling for their half a pace lap around this racetrack. Now there's a lot of tight corners on this racetrack, so some drivers are going to have to try their damnedest to make a move work if they have any hopes of getting good track position. And this is a great spot on the racetrack for someone to get a big run on another driver to make a move. But here we go. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing. Well, at the line, it was Dylan Young who led that lap. Rafael LeDuc, however, who started second, is not really going to give up that easily. He's still going to try and figure out a way to get to the back bumper of the 2 car. As we see here in this corner, LeDuc was able to get a bit of a run in there, but the run off the corner went to Dylan Young. Meanwhile, Dylan Jacobs sees his teammate Rafael LeDuc right in front of him, and he's hoping that the 77 makes some mistakes in hopes of getting around him for second. But he's also got to contend with Paul Mennick, who was side-by-side with him during the first lap, battling. And speaking of side-by-side, nearly got a side-by-side battle for fourth. Kyle Matthews was looking to go on the inside of Paul Mennick in the hairpin right there. And meanwhile, right behind him, Johnny Gardner, he's reeling in the 42 right onto his back bumper. So if these guys were to start to get side by side more often, we'll see some great battles, although we are already seeing that. And look at that big move Johnny Gardner makes to go to the bottom underneath the 42 for the 5th position, as this battle is still going on. Although it looks like Matthews is going to get the advantage with that outside run, going now to the inside to keep the spot away from the 41 of Gardner, but Gardner is still right onto the back bumper. Meanwhile, back up ahead, Dylan Young leads by a little more than 9/10 of a second, so still within reach is the 77. However, the 77 has also got to not only try and reel in the 2, but keep the 78 and the 9 cars behind them. Meanwhile, look at that run that Kyle Matthews got, trying to get on the inside of Paul Minnick to try and take that 4th spot. Meanwhile, back here, we got a battle going on for 7th between Brandon Gonzalez in the 23 and Tim Fiegel in the 8. Brandon Gonzalez, in one of only a few starts he's made so far this season, so far here in the early going, showing some promise. Meanwhile, trying to reel them both in is the 4 of DJ Curtis. DJ Curtis looking to try and improve upon how he's been running over the past several weeks. After all, he's currently 24th in the standings. However, between 6th and 25th, it is separated by about 65 points, so it can all change in an instant over the course of the next couple of weeks. So yeah, definitely don't discount DJ Curtis from potentially making the chase. We still got plenty of time. After this race, we still got 10 races left in the season. Actually, no, after this it'd be 9 races left. Excuse me. This is race 17. Next week would be race 18, which will be Daytona. And I screwed up right there, apologies. Meanwhile, the battle between Kyle Matthews and Johnny Gardner is still going on. But look at that run the 41 got that time. Was able to get to the bottom underneath the 42, but can he clear him off of this corner? No, he had to back out of throttle a little bit, and that helped to put the 42 back on the inside of the 41. Meanwhile, up here we got a battle going on for 3rd. Paul Minnick with the run on the inside of Dylan Jacobs. Although Jacobs has got that outside run by carrying more speed, and Rafael Leduc is now having to contend with those guys behind him, possibly reeling him in and making this into a bigger battle for the 2nd spot, because Dylan Young, he's pulled away by almost 2.5 seconds over the rest of the field, as meanwhile Paul Minnick, for the time being, has the 78 of Dylan Jacobs cleared for that 3rd spot. So now Dylan Jacobs falls back to 4th, and he's also having to contend with a couple cars, Kyle Matthews and Johnny Gardner right now. So now at the line, it's 2.6 seconds separating the top 2. But look at the run that Paul Minnick is getting. He's now right up to the back bumper of Rafael Leduc. So now we're going to see if Minnick has what it takes to potentially try and reel in the 2 car. But also keep in mind, we might see some pit strategy come into play during this race, because this is a longer event than usual here at Old Spice, 19 laps, and it takes about 48 seconds to get around this racetrack. But we'll see how things play out. Looking around in the back of the field right now, Jay Jefferson running dead last, trying to get up to the back bumper of Sean Galligan. But actually, let's do a full field rundown. Dylan Young is still your race leader. 2nd is Rafael Leduc. 3rd is Paul Minnick. Now moving up to 4th, if he can get him cleared, Johnny Gardner, but Dylan Jacobs still has that run. So 4th currently is Johnny Gardner, then 5th Dylan Jacobs, 6th Kyle Matthews, 7th Tim Fiegel, 8th Brandon Gonzalez, 9th DJ Curtis, 10th is Zach Flickinger, 11th is James Qualls, 12th Emmanuel Hartnett, 13th Joshua Michaels, 14th Pichu London, 15th Jake Rogers, 16th Dylan Poteet, 17th. Although pit stops, some cars electing to come into pit road, some electing to stay out. And I think Dylan Young did come in, so we could see some interesting strategy. Will those leaders like Dylan Young be able to make it the rest of the way on gas once he comes back out? Because these guys, it seems like all they gotta do is just pit one time and they're good to go. Everyone else that did come into pit road, however, including Dylan Young, it's questionable if they're even going to be able to make it. As we go back to try and find where the leader is, there he is, Paul Minnick. Let's see if he's going to come in. Yep, he's coming in along with Gardner. Jacobs, Matthews, Fiegel. It does look like everyone is coming in here. Looking around to see if anybody's going to attempt to stay out, and it doesn't look like anybody did. Excuse me. But we're going to stay here with the 9 car of Paul Minnick and see how he gets off of pit road, because we could very well see a big shakeup with the lead if this is going to be the case. But let's see. Minnick gets out all right. Matthews and Jacobs, however, they had to stay in a little bit longer, so they're going to lose quite a few spots. Perhaps once the 2 and company cycle around, they're going to lose a lot of spots. And in fact, I think things have cycled around. So Dylan Young still race leader. LeDuc still second, but we got a new guy in 3rd. Brandon Gonzalez, then Paul Minnick 4th. Johnny Gardner 5th. DJ Curtis in 6th. Zach Flickinger 7th. Jake Rogers 8th. Tim Fiegel 9th. Anthony McCurry now to 10th. And then 11th is Zachary Fitzwater. 12th Emmanuel Hartnett. 13th Joshua Michaels. 14th Dylan Jacobs. 15th James Qualls. 16th Kyle Matthews. 17th Dylan Poteet. 18th James Shelley. 19th Dorian Facepuncher, although you see some damage on the right side of that car. And then 20th Jonathan Zorline. 21st is Matt McIntyre. 22nd Carson Gum. 23rd Alex Ferranti. 24th Seth Cole. 25th Ashlyn Boyd. 26th is Chris Dollerton. 27th Pichu London. 28th William Brock. 29th James Richardson. 30th is one of the 2 points leaders, Joshua Sekuli. 31st Jessica Sheldon. 32nd Matt Haas. 33rd Preston Plord. 34th is the other points leader, Sean Galligan. 35th Charles Belding. 36th is Charles Sanford. 37th Trent Dunham. 38th Dylan Thoreau. 39th James McLeod. 40th Jay Jefferson. And then 2 cars a lap down somewhere, Ryan George and Joshua Collard. Collard is still on pit road, but I got no idea where the 84 is. Let's actually look for him. He's stuck on pit road as well. So Collard and George, tough break for those guys, ended up stuck on pit road 2 laps down. And no way they're going to be able to come back from that for sure. Meanwhile, back up here at the front, Dylan Young has been the dominant car all day and has now pulled ahead, at least this time, to an over 5-second lead over the 77 of Rafael LeDuc. As far as the closest battle we got going on track, we got a 3-car battle for what looks like the 11th spot with Zachary Fitzwater, Emmanuel Hartnett, and Joshua Michaels might turn into a 4, maybe 5-car battle, because you got Anthony McCurry in front of them and then Dylan Jacobs right behind them. So this could turn into a 5-car fight for the 10th spot. So let's see the margin now. And, sorry for that. I accidentally clicked something I shouldn't have. Anyways, back up here at the front. Dylan Young now extended his lead by a little over a 1/10 that last lap. So lap time differences, Dylan Young was a bit faster that time. Meanwhile, the closest battle I see up here at the front of the field, battle for 4th between Paul Minnick and Johnny Gardner, although Gardner lost a little bit of time right there. Although these guys are actually catching up to Brandon Gonzalez, so it might turn into a 3-car battle for the 3rd spot if things go their way. Looking around for the battle for 10th, and they're still pretty close, but nobody's really going for any moves right now. Perhaps they're trying to conserve what they have for the end, as we're now less than 3 laps to go in this race. But yeah, as long as Dylan Young doesn't overdrive and go off track into the grass or into a wall significantly, he should be home free to finally get his first win this season. There you see Rafael Leduc, who has a big gap between himself and Brandon Gonzalez. Now we are less than 2 laps to go in this race, and now Dylan Young has the biggest margin of the lead he's had all day, 5 1/4 seconds over the 77. Meanwhile, the 3-car battle for 3rd is about to get underway, as Gonzalez is now under fire from Paul Minnick, who in turn is also getting fire from Johnny Gardner. But as a result of Gardner trying to get to the 9, the 23 managed to pull away just a little bit. And then you got Joshua Collard, who's many laps down, trying to say, hey, I want to battle with you guys just to have some sort of fun. Meanwhile, the white flag is displayed for Dylan Young. Margin of the lead now, 5 seconds. So Leduc did gain a little bit, but I don't see it being anywhere close to being enough to get to the 2-car. Although Collard, he's making things difficult for Johnny Gardner to try and get up to that battle for the 3rd spot. Meanwhile, we're seeing some solid racing back here outside the top 10. But yeah, there's Dylan Young, so now all he's got to do is just make the apex, and he's home free. Checkered flag is waving now, and Dylan Young wins the Old Spice Office Depot 250 at Old Spice Raceway. Dominating performance for that 2 team. Great job. After a long winless streak, the 2-car finally gets back to victory lane. As we are also waiting for the rest of the results to get officialized so we can go through the results. But I think we can now. So anyways, congrats to Dylan Young for getting his first win this season. But let's look at the rest of the results. Rafael LeDuc, much needed good finish in the second spot. That will help him get back into the top 20 in the point standings. Brandon Gonzalez, the highest finishing rookie, in the third spot. Paul Minnick with a much needed run of fourth. And then Johnny Gardner with a solid top 5 finish in fifth. Great run in sixth for Tim Fiegel. Definitely a good finish for DJ Curtis. Solid 8th place finish for Zach Flickinger. Finishing out 9th was Jake Rogers. Rounding out the top 10 was Anthony McCrory. Rest of the top 20 was Zachary Fitzwater, Emmanuel Hartnett, Joshua Michaels, Dylan Jacobs, James Qualls, Kyle Matthews, Dylan Poteet, Jonathan Zorling, James Shelley, and Matt McIntyre. Rest of the top 30 was Dorian Facepuncher, Carson Gum, Alex Ferranti, Ashlyn Boyd, Seth Cole, Chris Dollarton, William Brock, Pichu London, James Richardson, and Joshua Sekuli. And then the rest of the lead lap cars were Jessica Sheldon, Matt Haas, Preston Blord, Sean Galligan, Charles Belding, Charles Sanford, Trent Dunham, Dylan Thoreau, James McLeod, Jay Jefferson. Then 2 cars 3 laps down were Joshua Collard and Ryan George. Well, that does it for our coverage here today at Old Spice Raceway. Thank you for watching. Next week we go to Daytona. But until then, here are your results. Rookie points and regular points heading into Daytona. And this is Levi McIntyre signing off.